chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. Let's talk across Americans another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Welcome to Gun Show Breakfast and Lunch Hour.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns. Today is Every Second Matters on the second day of each month. It's an opportunity to talk about the Second Amendment if you want to. Every Second Matters is an awareness campaign. There's nothing to join. There's nothing to be a member of. It's just an awareness campaign. If you're interested on the second of the month, do something to remember the Second Amendment. Do something to promote the Second Amendment. Do something for outreach, or don't. But it's the second, so we're gonna talk about it. And I'm working on ripping down everysecondmatters.com. How fun is that? So I'm screen sharing here, and we've got a couple of screens going on, but I'm also going to show you how messed up this is. This says that there's 2 people watching. There's at least a couple of people in here, right? So first off, we got the duck. Thinks it's so good. El Pato. And then you got Chris, First Thumb. Welcome. Unknown is asking him about what was already on Instagram today. And then appreciate the super chat. I actually minded my business the other day, and the super chat money came, or the YouTube money came in. Doesn't come in very often, so that was appreciated very much. Big chunk of that is from Garrett, so I definitely know who Garrett is. Thank you for that. Talking about the gun you got. Right on. Let's see. You guys are chatting back and forth. But like I was saying, now they're showing 5 people up here, but before it was showing 2 people in here, and there was way more than that in here. So there's DTP out there, and Lockjaw, and Ozzy. And now I got everybody we can get going. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to go back over here. And I'm going to go turn off my Chinese water torture. I left my sync going, I guess. And do I have music? I got to figure out where I stuck all my music. I was looking for it the other day. Stuck it in a folder somewhere. But I don't know where. So I'm going to just do that, I guess. I feel like there's stuff in here that isn't. It's probably all attribution not required, royalty free, but some of this is like this. It's for videos. I don't really ever use this. Actually, I don't use any of these. I've used this one before. So I'm going to go turn down that drip, and we'll dig in. I sent out links to like a dozen people because it's Every Second Matters. We'll see if anybody jumps in tonight or not. Whenever I remember to do it, I put this jug of water underneath the sink so that it drips into there. But I forgot to do it. All right, we'll turn that down and we'll start digging in. So I was just ripping apart Every Second Matters. Every Second Matters is the website. I got conned into doing this by Florida Carry. Acted like it was going to be a big thing, and I had already attempted to work with a couple of state-level organizations as a web guy. And this is, you can want to do anything in the world, but you got to have their interest in doing it also. So trying to get a whole bunch of people to do anything differently is unrealistic and not possible. So I knew that it was not possible to just blink your eyes and have all these different organizations work together. Half of them hate each other. Some of them are in direct competition with each other. Some of them are just not interested in the things that each other are interested in. The state level organizations, 50 BMG. Some of these things are just too specific for other people. But that's not a disadvantage. That's just a fact of life. So we can deal with that. So Every Second Matters, the concept was to put a thing together that would allow interested people to be the mortar in these bricks, right? See how all these individual organizations are represented by a little block on this screen? Every Second Matters is the thing that puts them together so that a person can absorb them, can deal with them, can digest them. Anyway, the idea was to have a community over there. That's not easy also. It's not even possible, it turns out. So going to rip that apart, and mainly because of this cost. This is just cost money to have this fancy software running. And the fancy software is to do things that a community would need to do. And there's just never been a community. Every Second Matters. It's mostly just been a collection of spam and troll accounts. So was just going through this list and transferring them over to Minuteman, where pretty much, not all of them, but some of them. And I don't know, I have this many tabs left. So that's this many organizations to pull over. And it's not like a single button to push. So I'm kind of using it as an opportunity to spruce them up and to update things. And every once in a while I find something new. So, we'll see. That's what I'm going to keep working on here. We'll go for a little while. This isn't quite the project I've been working on for the last few days, but it's part of it. Again, I'm not doing this show because I'm trying to get famous. I do this show so that we have a conversation, and we'll see if people chat in the comments here or if anybody joins us. But this show doesn't need to happen, but I'll make it available if people want it to happen. Let's see. So I got a drop holster for my GP100. I don't think it's better, but it makes me feel cool on horseback. Okay, well, there you go. I was going to say drop legs aren't good for anything really, except for motorcycles, snowmobiles, and horses. So on a horse, it's the appropriate holster. Otherwise, you'd be reaching up and fighting your jacket. So it makes sense on a horse. And it makes sense in a car, potentially. And it can make sense on a motorcycle or a snowmobile or something like that. I guess if you're riding dolphins around, that would also work. But you'd have to have a Glock 18 with maritime cups. Otherwise, you're just looking for trouble. A GP100, be a good gun, I guess. 357, I'm assuming. Found a range that was open today. Pretty much had to do it all myself. Right on. Oh, definitely. This is my folder that I open up and use for videos. And I used to, on that computer at least. I moved most of the songs over to this new computer, but I put a bunch of songs that I just like to listen to and the videos like this in a folder on that computer, and I can't for the life of me figure out where I stuck them. I thought I stuck it somewhere obvious, but I guess I didn't. Anyway, so we can do the same thing we did the other day. I ain't giving out no free patches. I ain't made out of money. But if anybody knows of any organizations that aren't already on this list, and I'll put the link in here. I don't know what kind of lag it's got, but I guess you didn't see me put the link in. I just stuck it in right now. When you go to that page that I just linked to, it starts chronologically with our oldest organization, which is the National Rifle Association, then followed by Illinois, Texas, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Maine, California. Actually, these get into like the 70s. So some of the earliest organizations are the NRA, and then some of the state level organizations that all sprouted up in the 1900s based off of the Militia Act, I think, of 1903. So if you know of any organizations that aren't in this portion of the list where they're in color, now this portion of the list is different, right? So this is like the original list, the old-fashioned, you just type of stuff in here type of list. Now this is a database-driven list. If I were to look at this, all that colored stuff is actually that little tiny bit of code. That little tiny bit of code relates to something over here. So when it shows, it pulls from a database and pulls all this stuff. That's that little tiny snippet of code. And then you start seeing this stuff again. So anyway, when you get to these old man-made lists or handmade lists, I could be missing stuff here, but I don't know. But basically, I'm really interested in what I'm missing up here, because these are the ones that will be growing, and I'll eventually just double check this list with down here and then kick these to the curb, because these, I think I pretty much include most of these national ones, I think, but not all of them. And let's see, so this list has just been, growing as I'm working on it. This list on Every Second Matters was things that accumulated over the years. I think I built the everysecondmatters.com, I don't remember, 15, 16, something like that. So it's been quite a few years, and then some people have added organizations to it, maybe a dozen people, but most of the time it didn't get used for much. So it was just, occasionally those dozen people would post a new organization when we'd see one missing. Whoa, what was that? Yesterday's showing up. That's the link. I carry Full Metal Jacket in my PCC because I want penetration for home interior defense. My say I should use JHP, but I only use it in my pistol. You're never going to get me to say anything good about a pistol caliber carbine. Those things are only good if you're going outside and shooting the still targets and you want to make noise and you want to shoulder it. If you're going to carry around something that takes up both of your hands, carry a rifle. I'm never going to be an advocate of pistol caliber carbines. If you were a cop and your only job is to shoot people that aren't shooting back or whatever cops with MP5s do, maybe. But if you're not like a SWAT team or something, you don't need a pistol caliber carbine. It's a stupid gun. It's too much to put in your hands. So I would not use a pistol caliber carbine. As far as the choice, I don't know. I wouldn't try to shove pistol carbine or pistol ammo through a rifle. I don't like that. I don't like the concept that on paper it gives you more velocity, because in real life it just clogs your barrel more often with the little tiny bullet going out of a big barrel. They're not made to do it. You're pushing it. So I sit there and bite my tongue on these chats when people talk about that stuff, because years ago I quit objecting. There's just no way to fight that wave. People are going to keep buying garbage. Sorry, not garbage, but guns that aren't useful for home defense. That's why I don't get a lot of viewers, because I'm not going to tell everybody the guns they bought are great. I only like simple, useful guns that prove themselves. All right, so I'm going to go quit ditching on people's gun choices and go back over here. So I just did Appleseed, and Appleseed goes into shooting sports, and I did the same thing with shooting sports. I've been working on this one a little bit earlier today. Palma is the first one, the first shooting sport. That started in 1876. And then you get trap shooting starting up, revolver shooting starting up, international stuff starting up, all the different trap splits up, comes back together eventually. Muzzleloading starts up, IPC, IPSC. NRA takes over the Olympics. IPSC starts to fracture into USPC, 50 caliber. You got 4-H starts up. You got the Sporting Clays branches off from ATA. You get the American Legion starts their version of youth shooting. You get ICOR, International Confederation of Revolver Enthusiasts, comes up to kind of fill in the gap where one of the oldest ones, the Revolver Association, kind of crapped out. GSSF comes up out of nowhere. Very similar to the original. This original thing, the Palma was NRA. This was just an NRA out at the at the Creedmoor range. So that's just the name of a shoot that NRA did. This is a bunch of companies come together and make an organization to create a sport of trap shooting because they sell ammo. And now you get, so the second organization, or the first organization ever really, is because capitalism. And then you finally get Glock coming along and doing the same thing, starting an organization based off of their guns specifically, not just their brand ammo, but their gun. And you get the Military Association, Military Marksmanship Association. USA Shooting basically takes over Olympic shooting. But Olympic shooting, we've had Olympic shooting has been in the first Olympics in 1820 or 1920, 18, whatever it was. The first Olympics had shooting in them. So there's been shooting in every single Olympics, except for one where they didn't have shooting in it. Then you get the CMP starting up. You get IDPA branching off because IPSC is too gamey. Then you get Scholastic Clays starting out. International Confederation of Small Bore Rifle basically takes up for Palma, which is the first competitive shoot that I know of in the world. And then you get Project Appleseed. Is that right, though? Yeah, 2006. So Project Appleseed is still the last one. So I like putting them in this order because then I can see history a little bit easier. I can see where they stack up. Although I've been thinking about going in and seeing, this is the plugin that runs this, for example. So if I go in here and edit this, I can go in here and flip something. But if I don't want to do this one, if I want to go in and flip this one, go back to gun owners' rights groups. Well, go back to gun owners' rights groups. And it's all like 4 by right now in that list. If I go down here and turn off that column part, the grid, and make it a vertical list again. Oh, you know what I want to do though? Then I want to add the date in there. So show post date, and then go up and hit OK, update. And now refresh this list. So it won't be a grid anymore, and this will be a long ass list. Oh yeah. Owners' rights groups, owners' rights groups, vertical list. Why didn't it change? Why isn't it changing? 2553, edit, 2553. That's weird. Okay. That's a refresh. There we go. I had to force refresh. My server was just serving me down the same page. It's like, yeah, here you go. So I said, no, give me the new one. Now it gave me the new one, and now they're in that list, a vertical list instead of a grid. Now I've got it by date and name, so name and date. So now you can see how the progression of gun owners' rights groups. Actually, this is gun owners' rights groups and a couple of other things. Mostly gun owners' rights groups, though. A couple of industry organizations, a couple of sporting things. There's some media projects in here. But pretty much a lot of the functionality we had on everysecondmatters.com, but in a little different format. Some of the same functionality and what, like I'm saying, but then you get into something like, I don't know which one I know that I got people on. Like this one, you know, I can have the people that it's attached to. I guess that's not a good one. Oh yeah, see, I can click on that dude and then go to his site or whatever, his page, and then go back over. It might be boring, but there's other people that are more interesting that get connected in a bunch of different ways. All right, so now let's go back over and see what people are saying over here. Oh, that's weird. What happened here? Shit, I got my email open. Let's see. Let's not do that. What was I trying to click on? Oh, I was trying to click on this, right? Yeah. All right, so what were you saying here? How do I read it now when I click on it? There we go. Oh, that you were saying about ammo. I had 2 days off work because the iGold rally got canceled, so I made a new holster with turquoise. Right on. I was going to post a thing about iGold, and then I didn't because I'm working on this other project, and iGold didn't happen. But I felt like I should have probably posted something just to commemorate that it would have happened. I forget what it is. Was it 18th? It was long. You've been doing it for a while, so that definitely sucks. I think I heard that they rescheduled it till like July or something, right? I'm crippled, and the recoil impulsive rifles is hard on me to tolerate. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, then, yeah. My problem is that they're still bad machines. They're a lot of times blowback, and that works on the range, but it don't work in real life. Gravity pulls down all the time. Bad guys come at you from all angles. So I don't know. I would have to understand more about when you say crippled. That can mean different things to different people. Some people say they're crippled when they can't move their shoulder good, and other people say they're crippled when their second leg finally stops working on them. So everybody has a different impression of that. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you're allowed to have a gun if you're crippled, but we'd have to talk about what caliber. Probably going to have to lift some weights. Lift some gallons of milk or something. Shoot something bigger than 9mm. But I still have a problem with, especially with stupid 9mm Nemec long round. I just don't like that gun for lots of reasons. That round for lots of reasons. One of them is it's pushing it as far as being able to work a big gun, and people love cramming it in big guns now. These are all the people that never had carbines back in the day when they were shitty. So maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just gun shy because they were always shitty. But maybe 20 years from now, somebody could prove me wrong by having 20 years of reliability on something that for the last 20 years has been notoriously unreliable. And whenever I shoot in the desert and I roll around, I don't know how many people actually stand on it, like lean over, bend over, smash their head into the ground so that they're basically not doing a headstand because I'm not spaz, but underneath shooting underneath a barrier as if you were trying to shoot underneath a car, like down a ways, using the tires as concealment. You would be upside down shooting into dirt and dust and stuff. And if you've never done that before, you don't realize that blows dust all over the place. And that means dust goes into your gun upside down. And that's just the easiest way to conceptualize all the weird stuff you might do. If you're underneath a bush or shooting up from who knows where, or maybe you're just in a place that has dust all over the place. So if people have never shot with dust around, never shot with dirt around, their guns work perfectly, and they think they work perfectly. I've shot guns in weird places and upside down and stuff, just playing around, and in competitions and and then watch people run around like really run around like spazzes at those competitions, and just seeing things work and not work. So pushing on a pistol caliber through a rifle, I'm never going to get down with that. But with those other stipulations, like I say, way easier to cough today than when I was doing that dual chat thing yesterday with the both chamber and Pato open. Made everybody matching holsters. As makes leather holsters. Do you caliber consolidate? I already have 19 different calibers to buy for. I don't know. That would be interesting. I thought about doing a project on evolution of a gun owner, and that implies that you go from one to another, that there's some kind of steps or rungs or whatever, but there's phases or options and stuff, and definitely some people will get into the accumulation of guns and calibers, and other people will get into the whatever the opposite of that is. And I guess it depends too, if you're starting with 0 and you stay at 0, or you start with 1 or 2 and you stay at 1 or 2, versus having a lot and understanding what it's like to truly have obscure calibers and a lot of them, and then living that life, and then deciding, I'm going to go with less bullets. I don't know. There's probably a lot of different advice on that one. Do I consolidate calibers? No. Only what would you say? I don't know. I think only a person who's not thinking of the future only owns the caliber that they have guns for. Does that make sense? There's no reason to limit yourself to the things that feed any gun. So if you can get ammo at a good price, like let's say there's nickels and dimes and quarters, and you might enjoy a Starburst fruit chewy, and that might cost you $0.25 at the local taco shop. So when you're ordering your tacos and you're waiting for them to show up, you can put $0.25 in there and get yourself a Starburst candy, right? But let's say a dime won't fit in there, won't do you no good. Are you going to just never accept a dime? Are you going to throw away dimes when you see them because they don't work in your Starburst machine? No, you're going to keep dimes, right? So I don't understand people that consolidate calibers. I guess if you're live in an apartment, or maybe if you live in one of those Japanese lunchbox houses where they're small and you have to live in a tube. Living in a tube is neat. It's like you're living in a chamber of a cylinder. But in those kind of situations, I guess you can't have ammo, even though you could just rent a shed somewhere, put ammo in that shed, call it ammo shed. Maybe more even, I'm not sure. Oh, you're saying you got 19 calibers? Those are good numbers. There ain't nothing wrong with having 19 calibers. right on. I liked, I don't remember what got me started in making them, but I think it was that I saw somebody on the forum for those little revolvers that was supplying people with interesting looking holsters. You know, lots of stitching, and they look like little Western holsters, or they looked like little 70s police holsters. You know, they looked pretty neat, but they wanted $70 a piece or something crazy, and I'm not going to pay no $70 a piece when I've got dozens and dozens of those guns. So I just figured it was easier to make my own. So I went over to the local leather store, and then it just happened that some kid there was like, "Oh, I know who you are." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he hooked me up with a business account there, so I didn't have to pay tax, which was nice because I was making videos for YouTube. You know, I guess that was side of the point, right? To make like a not like a DIY. I didn't know nothing, but like a here's share my adventure type of thing as I made those. So they were a business expense technically. But anyway, I got to get them a little bit cheaper. You get like a rate. Was it Tandy Leather? I forget the name of that chain. But there was this chain that was in Tucson. It's been all around. I mean, it's a chain all over the country. And you get a little bit cheaper being a business, and then you didn't have to pay tax. So I bought a bunch of scraps and pieces because I was making holsters for tiny revolvers. And then I played around a little bit. A lot of fun. So I don't know how many I made, but you get better every time you make one. I mean, it's like anything, right? So Ozzy's got to be pretty dang good. The first, I don't know, I seen one, had to be one of your first ones if you've made like 20 now. This has been a while ago. More calibers equals more fun. I think I would agree with that. Here's the thing. If you are going out shooting with somebody, they go, "Hey, let's go shooting." And you're like, "All right." And then you bring out, you know, if you can only bring 9mm, I guess it's your thing. But like you go out there and they're like, "Hey, I'm shooting real caliber, like a caliber that ain't metric, and like we're having fun, we're living life." And then you're over there with just your 9mm. Like, what are you going to do? What are you bringing to the party there? But if you can have like a box of 44 and somebody brings a 44, "Hey, can I shoot it? I brought my own ammo." It's like, of course you can shoot your own ammo through my gun. Go for it. And then let's say you only shoot 5 times. So they'll then bring the rest of that ammo home, and you got it for the next time you go shooting. So I know people that they'll keep maybe ammo in their car, like in a duffel bag or something, or they'll bring it with them specifically. So we go shooting in the desert. That's a little bit different. If, you know, in the before times, a couple of dozen people, not a couple of dozen, but maybe a dozen people would go shooting, and you don't know who's showing up. Somebody brings their friend, somebody brings their friend from work or something, and you know, so somebody new shows up. And in those situations, having a duffel bag full of all kinds of miscellaneous ammo, I think that's wise. People copy off of me. I could see that. Down to 4 main calibers. Those are good, except for the 9. Don't consider 9 a caliber. That's like a BB. That's like people counting BBs as part of their inventory. Plus, if something really happens, they're going to confiscate all the 9mm, and 9mm people will obey. It's their nature. That's true. If you go look at his Instagram, you can see the pictures of him. Tino 762. So if y'all are working ammo, buy 762, buy 223. It offsets the price of going into a gun show, or if you drive across town to see a shop or something. You know, it's a way to spend some money. It's a way to it's offset your time you spend going over there. Severe spinal damage and joints. Long guns pull me down, rifle calibers and impulse in my spine. So don't hold them normal, maybe. Shoot them from like some kind of weird armpit thing. I don't know if I'm gonna solve that tonight. I'll probably solve it tonight though. I don't know. I want to be on the road right now. Gas is cheap, but I'm not gonna do it the way I used to do it. So I don't know how I'm gonna do it now. We'll have to see what the after is like. I'm still in business. Nobody, I mean, a couple of people bailed, but for the most part, thank you very much. 200 something people stuck around on Patreon, so I'm still here. If I can keep going, I'll definitely keep going. I've only seen 200 gun shops. I know there's like at least more than that, right? A couple more. Let's see. So it's actually easier for me to shoot short barrel rifles because the recoil is bored by my wrist. I don't know. We got to see how you're shooting too. It sounds like you're shooting wrong. some of these things I had, and then I've seen videos that use the songs, and now I'll never use the songs because some like jerk video is up there being dumb that I don't want to ever be associated with. An LCR 357 set doesn't make no sense. How are you going to shoot a 357 and then complain about like a 223 rifle? That doesn't have no recoil. AR pistol? I can't imagine that having much recoil. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I'm big, so I'm not going to act like I know what recoil would be like for somebody that's broke or hurting or whatever, like sore or got a hand twister or something. Like I would have no idea. That's up to everybody's checking it out. Hopefully, you got people you can go hang out at a range and shoot a bunch of stuff. But I'd say try shooting an AR pistol from your armpit instead of like normal, like you would get instructed, as a healthy person going into the military. Who cares how they shoot it? I would try shooting it how it works for you. You can brace that thing behind you on the wall or the chair or something. I have an LCR 357 mag. I like that. It's a little easiest, so it's the one to carry the most. Yeah, well, it's probably the best gun. Yep, it was a pretty good gun. Shouldn't have got rid of it. Why'd you get rid of it? Quit listing off all your ammo. The internet reads all this stuff. I'm gonna tell everybody what you got. Picked up a Smith Airweight, and I'm digging it. I don't know which one that is. I didn't like my Airweights. I think I sold them all for money. They were neat when, to have them, I guess, when I was accumulating, but I didn't mind passing them or passing them along once I got the LCR. It shoots that much better. Right on. Good gun shops in your area. Yeah, see? What are you doing? It's because you hang out with Yankee too much. See? LCR. So a minute ago, you sold your LCR. I missed my LCR. Oh, it's two different people. I've been wanting an inside the waistband for my LCR. I don't know if I could go with that. Not a big fan of shoving revolvers in my pants unless you're trying to act like a 1970s detective in New York. All right, so I'm back over to here. So we got the Apple seat in there. I can close that out of there. This was the Massachusetts gun rights, MAGR. And I do not think I have that in here yet. MAGR. Dang, I can't even get people to join in the panel on Every Second Matters. I didn't bug them or nothing. I just was like, hey, Every Second Matters. You want to join in? They're all like, F you. I don't care about guns or Second Amendment anymore. It was cool back in the before times to like guns and Second Amendment stuff. When there was profit in it. But now that it's not profitable anymore. Anybody ever heard of MAGR? Massachusetts gun rights? Dear Massachusetts gun rights supporter. So I guess MA is Massachusetts. 100% voluntary, completely dependent on the voluntary, blah, blah, blah. Your donations go to the blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. All they talk about is money. I never like that. It always rubs me the wrong way. They have business hours for. Oh, this is that one that's a store, I think. Yeah, this seems like a store to me. Doesn't this look like a store to you? I'm not putting this in my list. Rick put that in here. So Rick's not a con man, but that place seemed like a store. So now we get to Firearms Coalition, which I can't believe I don't have in here yet. I guess I just didn't put it in here yet. Okay, well, I put it like this because I always thought it would be neat to see them all listed out like this. Kind of is, but it's also way too difficult to deal with. So I'm going to go back over here and flip this back to the vertical list to responsive grid, they call it. And I think I'm going to try these options take effect, blah, 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 width of grid item in content in pixels, minimum height. Did I have these in here? I thought I had them over here. Yeah, I got them over here. So I'm going to say use aspect ratio because I want that. And then I'm going to try to put a margin of 10 in there and see what All right, so now we're going to go back here, and when we refresh, it should go back into the grid. Put a little bit of a gap between them so they're not touching. And they all look like they're in relatively complete. Not all of them. Some of them are still skewed, like this New Jersey one's goofy. These are goofy, but for the most part, you can see most of these. Wonder how many of them are here. Is there some way to? I wonder how to select them. All right, so next I don't have Firearms Coalition. Looks like it was, I don't even know when it was made. Maybe that's why I don't know. Wonder why it's not working. Is our site not working? Firearms policy is that. So we want Firearms Coalition. So it's not that name anymore, it's just Firearms Coalition. Interesting. All right, well, so I'm going to try to, I don't really have an about us or anything. There we go, founded in 1984. So now we'll put this over here, go back to here, close that. And then I can go to new and post. And it's going to be the Firearms Coalition. Let me just make sure I don't have it in here already. I got a draft, firearms policy, just everybody else talking about it. So I'll go into that draft that I just made and enter once, put in some bullet points. And you just kind of drag stuff in. When it's browsers that are happy with each other, hit enter a couple more times and the bullet point goes away. I can drag this over. I've been putting the URL in after. I've had to switch to the old WordPress. Oh, there's Cycle Camp. Sorry about that. I didn't know if you've been in there a while. I just saw you right now.
That's okay.
Have you been in there for a while?
No, I just got on a minute or so ago. I looked about 10 minutes after the hour and I didn't see anything, so I just been hanging around doing other stuff.
Oh, right on. Yeah,
And your caliber guys, I'm ashamed of all of them.
Because they don't have enough calibers?
Well, because they don't have any of the, 30-06, 7.5 French, Swiss, 8mm Mauser. I mean, the man calibers.
Now, I don't know if you've been watching, I've been taking apart Every Second Matters. Every Second Matters is built on a big system like the channels was, so it costs money to keep it running and everything. So I'm just moving it over to a WordPress and gutting it. It was designed to be a thing people could sign into, and it could be like a big community of a bunch of people working together to, update stuff. Since that's not being used that way, I'm just going to keep the, the elements of it that are useful to archive and to, inform. But for the most part, that means for now at least the organization. So on Every Second Matters, you can see I posted a lot of them with the Every Second Matters account. Every once in a while, like Rick here, Yoder, other people posted stuff occasionally, Mitch Gunder. But for the most part, I just posted a bunch of these. I think you might have put a couple in here. At least I got a couple from you, like a Connecticut one or something probably. But I don't know. Do you have any organizations that you're aware of that you're a fan of that I could see if make sure I've got them in the list? The goal is to have as many.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yeah, CCDL is the big one in Connecticut, and then there was a splinter group called Connecticut Carry that they didn't think CCDL was reactionary enough, so they split off. Actually, that's the one that Ed Peruta is part of. You know, Ed Peruta from the California decision that tried to go to the Supreme Court and all that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know how he's doing. I haven't talked to him in a little while. He had some health issues. His heart was bothering him, but he's a kind of cool guy. I really like him.
Right on. Yeah, I've noticed just from compiling the lists, and I've done it for Every Second Matters. I did it before that. Now I'm doing it again now for this project. Sometimes it's like an organization, like a lot of these organizations were created in the 1900s, like right at the turn of the century, 1900s, early 1900, because of the Militia Act created the guards and the reserves and everything, and allowed for state organizations to do things like buy ranges and provide matches and stuff to keep people shooting. So a lot of them were created at that time, it seems like. Then those organizations were, probably mostly, it seems like, just from my brief looking at them, mostly military, either reserves or retired guys that wanted to keep their skills up and wanted to, be part of the facilitation of expertise in marksmanship, or at least, getting familiar with marksmanship in the civilian realm. So they had that military law enforcement sometimes kind of hint to them. But then you get the end of the Civil War, then you get a bunch of anti-gun laws where, oh, you're free, we don't want you to have guns, right? And then you get the wars, and nothing happens because everybody's at war, and people were kind of rational. Nobody was trying to be a gun prohibitionist. Then you get the 60s and a whole bunch of reaction to the assassinations and the communist influences and stuff. And then you start to see all kinds of stuff happening again. And that's where I think you see some organizations happen either in response to or in defense of the 68 and things that happened right around the 1968 Gun Control Act. So then you get your organizations that had been military, maybe hunting. I kind of left out there that somewhere after the Second World War, conservationists, anti-gun prohibitionists would, in the guise of conservationism, go after hunters. In other words, go after guns because everybody was hunting. Nobody was really into self-defense because there wasn't a lot of crime, and guns weren't really, some people carried guns and you didn't talk about it. But anyway, there was gun prohibitions in a lot of places, so people just didn't think about carrying guns, and there wasn't a lot of crime. Anyway, so there was some attacks on guns, not because of self-defense, but because of hunting. So these organizations that had been military law enforcement, from what I understand, sort of probably either became or shifted to be hunting focused. Plus, there's no war, so you're going to be hunting focused potentially. At least it's an option. So I think then you start to see some of these organizations in the reaction to 68 come out and say, you're too much hunting. And the NRA is a perfect example, right? But I think that is just an example of many facets that happen at state levels also, where you get organizations that existed for marksmanship or for preparedness type of thing, and now they're not focused enough on gun rights, as as far as the loss of the Second Amendment, which was becoming evident at the 1968 Gun Control Act, that they were thirsty, ravenous for it. And now it's real easy to look back. I don't know, for you, you're a little older than me, so maybe you got a better perspective on it. But I think the kids today don't understand Cold War, and they don't understand what we consider to be issues of the day. So when we talk about communism, I think now people think of that as some sort of a sarcastic, jokey thing, like a Seinfeld episode, communism, when in real life, back in the day, there was serious concern about communism. It went from McCarthyism to a joke, and somewhere in the middle, there was a valid concern about, I believe, communism, socialism creeping in and affecting our society. And I think one of the ways they did that was either by funding or initiating, pre-internet, some of these campaigns to be ravenous anti-gun at a time when there was no need for that. That wasn't a solution to anything. It was just an option, and it was anyway kind of out of nowhere. So anyway, in reaction to all that, I think then you see the gun pro gun owners' rights side get fractioned, and you see people that were, content with hunting and military guns, and maybe didn't agree with concealed carry or with personal defense, and then because there was never a reason to be divided, there was now a fracture, and now you see organizations that were content to not care about rights, personal civil rights as far as self-defense, and you see organizations get fractured, or organizations like you're saying where you're not enough for me, or you're not, Second Amendment focused enough for me. You're doing it the different way. So we're going to start our own group over here within the same state. But then even after that, you start to see, well, we want constitutional carry, or we want open carry, or we want some other specific thing, suppressors for hunting or something, and the rest of the group doesn't. So we're going to make a fractured second group just to focus on that. And I see that in like Texas with open carry, and then student campus carry, that can sometimes not get enough attention from a big group. So a second group starts, and that's the part where I'm at now. Like I got all the big groups. Now I'm trying to figure out which of these groups are valid, because there's a third, which I don't know if you have them in Connecticut or not, but the fly-by-nights or the opportunists or the exploiters that'll come in and go, oh, I can make a few bucks. Like this is a hot topic. And I've seen other people come in and swoop in and make a bunch of money selling a book, or make a bunch of money becoming a go-to person for the talk show circuit. I can be famous. Like I'm in for that. And I think there's that level too, which obviously don't have much long-term staying power, but sometimes they're influential at their time, or they did something that moved something. So I'm including them. But then there's others that literally just harvest money, and I want to not include those, except for to include them as part of the big picture, so learn a lesson. But I'm discovering some of those too, where I'm pretty sure they just swoop in to either take credit for and scoop up maybe, what's the word, like donations, when people are confused. An excellent example there is, Marion, what's her name? Marion, the NRA lady.
What, the gal that just became president?
Goodness, did they make her president? Marion, you mean they put her in after, what's his name stepped down?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I thought her first name began with Marion. I thought her first name was Marion. I know who you mean, though. It's like Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. All they are is I get literally every other month, I get a letter from them saying, hey, you need to renew your membership. And of course, I keep track of my memberships. I know I'm already paid up through the year, and they're just after the bucks. Give me the bucks. Give me the bucks.
Well, okay, so Marion Hammer, that's what I was trying to think of. So she has a thing called United Sportsmen of Florida. Well, that's been around since 1976, and there's one person in the United Sportsmen of Florida, it's her, and that's how the NRA pays her. And that's because the NRA can't do things, as a lobbyist or as a education, you can only do things, and that means somebody else has to do something else. So her role in Florida has been to basically do everything that needed to happen in Florida to allow CCW to happen in every other state. So from what I can understand, she is hopefully unique, but she is both very good and very bad, because she's done very good things, and she's been like the first NRA female president, stuff like that. She created Eddie Eagle. But then she also has done some horrible things, and she got up and wants Elaine LaPierre to stay in as the NRA and everything. But on the other hand, she was almost single-handedly responsible. Most people will suggest she's almost single-handedly responsible for the 1970s change in Florida to trigger all the CCW changes around the country. So she's done all kinds of interesting things. But right now, anyway, the thing is, there's the Unified Sportsmen of Florida is her organization. There's one called Sportsmen of Florida, the Union of Florida Sportsmen or something like that. Like somebody came along and sat one down right next to hers. That's literally almost the same name. It's like Sportsmen Florida Unified or something like that. So it's just the same words in a different order. And I suspect that was to screw with her or to harvest people that were, not really verifying, I need to give her some money, and I just went online and donated real quick. I accidentally donate to the people next door. But I see
Yeah,
that a couple.
the new president of or the newer president is Carolyn Meadow. Sorry, I had the wrong name.
Oh, okay, good. Carolyn Meadows is. I've heard of her though. She's not. What's her name? Would be old as hell. Marion is old. She's super old.
Yeah. Well, they're
she's
both pretty old.
Yeah. But Meadows was something else. She was, I think, there doing something when.
Yeah, she served in the NRA. I mean, she's an internal promotion.
No, but I mean, I think she was around whenever everybody was at, how nobody went into the NRA annual meeting the last time they held one in 2019, when everyone showed up for the fun stuff, but nobody went into the room to actually challenge Wayne LaPierre as president. There was like that big empty room. I think she was one of the people in there running the thing or whatever. Being one of the, what do they call, like, the facilitating the thing.
Yep.
Anyway, so Connecticut Carry makes me wonder if their focus is more on carry or open carry even than the other one, your Connecticut CCL, which is Second Amendment rights across the board, right?
Well, CCDL's primary focus is legislative action, and Connecticut Carry is more like lawsuits and stuff. They.
Oh, okay, that's a great point too. So both have the same goals, but they're using different tools. They have a different.
They believe in different tactics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's not necessarily. I mean, they definitely have different ways of obtaining the same goal, but they're all in the same team. Now, sometimes, at least I haven't heard of. I don't think these kind of situations get nasty with each other. They just don't agree with each other sometimes, and they'll maybe be a little petty when it comes to getting resources like fundraising and stuff, but otherwise they don't usually try to trip each other up, where some of the other unscrupulous types are banking on confusion or banking on deception or misinterpretation. So they're going to often be the bad guy will go around like, why can't we all get along? What's wrong? Everybody should just play fair. We're all on the same side. And the people that they're screwing over will never even acknowledge them, which I notice is one of the reasons it's difficult to even accomplish this task, because the people that are truly nefarious, like the worst of the worst, nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want to help them at all, like to promote their garbage. So it's tough sometimes. I'll put something up there and I'll have somebody discreetly say, get that off of there. That person is a horrible, it's like a Bloomberg plant. Like I'll get that every once in a while. And I don't want to ignore that, because we need to know when we got disinformation and we got unscrupulous people out there. We want to call them out, in other words, but at the same time, we don't want to call them out in a way that doesn't help them, doesn't promote them, because that's what they're doing. Is they're like the leeches, right? They suck onto a valid thing and just harvest resources. They just live off of other people's efforts. And every time you acknowledge that they're there doing it, they succeed because they're still there. The best thing you can do, I guess, would be to ignore them and eventually starve them out of there. But that's a tough thing when you're trying to eliminate everything, right? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, they're pretty good at diverting resources from the organizations that really need them.
They are. And then, well, like I say, I'm still trying to map it all out. So thanks for that. I didn't have Connecticut Carry in here at all. And that's a good way to, I've been working with the tools that we have inside of WordPress, and I think of WordPress as a bunch of posts that are organized by pages. And you can put filters on the pages, or you can do something to your posts, like put tags on them, to make those two simple elements work together in different ways. So, visually, if I'm looking at this page and I want to see all the Second Amendment organizations, I've got all those posts that have Second Amendment organizations on them, and each one has a thumbnail. So I tell this page to display those in such a way that I can see the thumbnails in the title, and then display them in like a grid like this.
Now you're not including any of the collector organizations, right?
No, I am actually. So I've got the first ones that I know of are the American Society of Arms Collectors. I got the International Ammunition Association. I've got the European Cartridge Research Association. That's where I might draw the line. When it gets to European, I'm basically keeping it America, United States, our hemisphere, but because some things kind of started here or the European came second or something. Like I'm including some. So I've got those 3-4 cartridge or those different collectors, and I think that's all I knew about. So I'm definitely interested in adding those. I just don't know of enough of them, I guess. So do you have some of those?
But you're pretty much a national focus.
No, not at all. I want to be
okay, because all right. Well, in Connecticut, we have another organization called Ye Old Gun Guild, and they're the guys that focus on the old stuff.
With an old E with an E.
Yeah, old with an E. Yep.
Okay. And guild is only one. Right on. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff too that you see. My focus or my idea is that some of these things, which might be old and rusty or not, but might be hemorrhaging or just limping along, get stirred up, let people know. I was sitting there last year. I don't get invited to this meeting, but all the gun museums, right? They have a meeting together, and they're like, you know what? Let's get together every single year and have a meeting. And we're just the gun museums, and we're going to get together and we're going to have a gun museum meeting. And we're so aware of what's going on that we're not going to invite a guy who spends ultimate resources to drive around looking at our museums, right? Let's not bring that guy because he's seen every one of them pretty much, and he cares intimately about all these, but let's not invite him. So I watch this thing remotely, and I see them bitching and moaning that, oh, nobody wants to go to our museums because clubs are dying. I'm like, well, then it's obvious to me. Help clubs, and you help people want to go to a museum. Like they're going to help promote your stuff. So anyway, I'm hoping that part of this is that'll get accomplished. So I can't imagine. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just assuming this club is having trouble, but I can't imagine a gun club in the most historic part of the country as far as guns ever having a problem, right? Hopefully, somebody in New Mexico could go, oh, I really care about this whole thing. So you've got people there that can bring a camera across the street. Like, let's keep this club going. Or maybe there's just a gun shop that wants to keep something like this. So this is a Connecticut-based, just all firearms? I guess I haven't even looked at anything. Is it just all firearms, or is it? Yeah,
they don't care as long as it's old.
Okay, so old guns. Okay, so not just like I might have a collection of Saturday Night Specials. That wouldn't count. That's not old enough.
Well, no, I mean you would certainly get space at the gun shows and swap meets and stuff, but they primarily focus on older firearms and militaria.
Very cool. Now, I know
and they got thrown out of their. They used to meet. They used to have their big gun show every year at this really big hall, and then when everybody got all their panties in a twist about gun show loopholes and crap like that, they got thrown out. And they had to find a new place to go. So it's a real pain.
Yeah, imagine in Connecticut too.
Yeah, Connecticut really sucks. Yeah.
But this one, it's like when you mentioned the part about the show, there's this, I've been really, really, really wanting to go to, there's an antique gun show in Denver, in Colorado each year. And I've known about it for like 2 decades. And I can't just go to Colorado. It takes like almost $1,000 for me to drive up there, I think. It's on my Spaten hotel or something. So
isn't there one after SHOT in Vegas?
There used to be one like the day or literally right after SHOT. This year, it didn't happen. Don't think, but it would have been in March. For some reason they kicked it 2 months later. So I don't know if that was like a big accident.
That's a coronavirus. Yeah.
No. This year they did that intentionally. So I don't know if way before the virus. So I don't know if that was like they got sick of doing it, getting stepped on SHOT Show, or if they just, because it's been like that for years. Maybe they just wanted to see what it's like not being with SHOT Show, or it was like a mistake or something and something got booked. But for some reason this year out of nowhere, it was 2 months later, or 2 months on the calendar. It was really like 8 weeks, 6 weeks later. But normally it's the weekend of or the weekend before. So but that one is, it is an antique gun show, and it's fairly big as far as gun shows go. It's maybe twice, 3 times the size of a decent gun show, but it's like 50% knives and custom knives and knife crafting. So there's a whole bunch of that show that's just steel and like pieces of wood and stuff. Like it's not even complete knives, just pieces of knives. And then they have a little bit of engraving there. So there's people engraving, and there's a bunch of engraved guns. And when you've got a $25,000 gun, you don't put 8 of them on a table. You put 4 of them on a table. So it just takes up a lot of room for the show, and it's just not a lot of gun for your money. There is also like some kind of weird auction, I guess, or just some interesting like exotic part of the gun show at that one all the time. And they've got things like, like a full mount tiger or a bear, or like a just old interesting furniture, or like a set of books or something that's nobody cares about, but they're antique. But I mean, they're not guns at all, but they're just interesting, or like a weird suit of armor. Like they'll have interesting stuff like that, but again, it takes up like a whole room of that show, and it ain't guns. Like maybe there'll be a gun or two in that room. So as much as that show is interesting, it ain't nothing like Tulsa. And I'm suspecting the one in Denver is, because I've never been there yet, but I think it's, from what I understand, like only old people. It's like if you took all the good stuff that you would like from Tulsa and put that in its own gun show, and that happens in Denver each year. Can't remember for the life of me. I think in like second quarter of the year, something like that. I got a lot of calendar stuff in my head lately, but again, it got killed because of the stupid virus this year. I bet you 90% of that show is susceptible to that virus. The last thing they want to do is all get together and risk anything, right?
Oh yeah, they're all in the at risk population. Yeah, I was pissed about Wanamaker this year. I was really looking forward to going.
And then I guess where I was getting onto that whole thing is that one in Colorado is run by a group. Now, Tulsa is run by a group too, a collectors club. There's a couple of ammo collector clubs that have basically 6 shows a year, let's say. So that's a whole thing. And I guess, I'm not into them, but I suspect like Civil War collectors probably have their own show somewhere that's like the big show. Have you been to an NRA show before?
No, I've never been to an NRA show.
You've probably seen like videos and stuff, though. I know I've done a video back in the olden days, like 10 or 11. But 20% of the floor space at an NRA annual convention is nonprofits and clubs. So they'll have all kinds of neat stuff. Like the Thompson Club is almost always there. The Glock Club, people that collect Glocks are there. People that collect like Colts and the typical stuff are there. There's I've seen one time in Phoenix, they had a guy that collected, or maybe it was a group that collected like all the female uniforms from like World War II, I think, which was kind of neat. Something you don't expect to see a collectors group for. And then cannons. Anyway, there was a collectors group that's been to every NRA show I've seen or even seen covered, because it's a pretty big display. You can see it even if they're just talking about something else. And it's like all the poker guns, I guess, like all the interesting looking like gambler guns or whatever you'd call like the Chicago gun, and the different weird Derringers, and the duck gun, or that thing that has like the duck bill gun, I think they call it, where the barrels go off in 5 different directions. So there's like a collector's group of all those weird guns. And I bet you they have a show. Every people that collect cannons, they probably have their own show, because that's the kind of stuff that not enough people go to a typical gun show to even make it worth their while to bring their extras out. But if they ever want to just collect, trade their real collections with each other, you kind of need to have like an extract. You need to have like a show that's just focused on that one thing. And that would certainly be neat. I'd love to be able to get some sort of a list of all the unique shows that happen, or unique clubs that run those shows.
Yeah, that would be a thing to see. I mean, I know that they do a similar thing with a lot of the state fairs with guys that have like the old hit and miss engines and stuff like that. Where that's the only time you ever see them. You might once in a great while you might see them at some other fair, but it's nice when you see them all together like that. And you can compare them and contrast them.
Right, and it's maybe not worth their effort to bring something to a regular fair for the 2 people that might appreciate it. But yeah, to the fair where it's only going to be people that appreciate it, they're going to bring the fanciest or the interesting things out. Yeah,
when they got to stick them on a flatbed to get them there in the first place, they want to definitely get their bang for the buck.
Chris is saying it's one in Kentucky. If I buy something for storage, you count that as free package. Yeah, so the store doesn't have any kind of like automated thing. Usually if anybody buys anything from me, I'm sending them a free patch, honestly. Nobody buys anything from me. So I don't remember last time somebody bought something. Probably you. So anybody who buys anything is getting a free patch. It's not like you have to really buy it on Friday. That's just an excuse to be able to remind people that the store exists or whatever. But I forgot to send you that C4 one last time. If it was on the panel, I think now that you said that, I think I remember you put that in there that last time. But if it's on the panel, you got it. Appreciate it. I had a bunch of magazines and stuff up. I kind of thought they would sell, because people are homebound, but I guess it didn't pan out. I don't think people are in the mode of like, I'm stuck in for a month and it's craziness. I'm gonna go on eBay and buy a bunch of periodicals, a bunch of magazines.
Yeah, we're just getting ready to open our range up this weekend, so that'll be good to be able to get out there again.
You mean like the way you're saying that for the season or something, like it's been closed for the winter, or because of the?
Yeah, we close it for the winter. It's an outdoor range and there's no facilities there. So we do the big spring cleanup, we rake up and get all the down branches and, all that garbage. And we put the big, I'm sorry.
Is it legal or are you going to have to go rogue?
Yeah, we're legal. Well, I mean, we're not supposed to have more than 5 people or whatever. And
in Arizona, I think it's 10.
Yeah, well, it all depends on where you're at. And a lot of guys have wives at home that are immune compromised, because we're all old farts anyway. And they're already saying, no, we're not gonna shoot the matches in April. We'll wait till May and we'll come in. I think we've only got 3 matches in April, so it's not that big, or ones that we can't make up. There's a 30 caliber match, I think, not this weekend, but 2 weekends from now is our first weekend match, and then we start the pistol matches and the trap matches and stuff the 3rd week of April. So
I'm gonna give you your own personal tactical quiz, since that made me think of a couple of things that I've been. I don't know if you can see the screen where I'm clicking on stuff.
Yeah,
I've been on the site or whatever, and one of the things that's been like sort of like when you have a fingernail that's split or something and it's just hanging there and bothering you. One of the things that's been bugging me is the shooting sports one. I've had most of it all accumulated, but never put in order like this. So I did that, and in the process, this took like a while to do this. I ended up learning so much more about the shooting sports than I ever really wanted to know. But I'm going to throw a couple of questions out there that are right here, so it's not like it's hard to find them or nothing. But when do you think, and I don't know if I've never talked about this with you that I can remember, so I don't know how much interest you have in this at all, but when do you think the first shooting competition, the first recorded shooting competition was? Is that something you've ever thought about, or do you know, or you just trying to remember it, or
for Civil War?
Before the Civil War, for sure.
I would think so. I would think it'd be before the Civil War.
Yep.
Let me think.
I think so, at least. I have to remember when the damn Civil War was, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably, let me see, 1876. I'd say sometime in the 1880s, probably.
And then I'm not going to answer the question or let you know the answer to the question necessarily, but I'm going to then ask, and this is for everybody who's listening too, obviously. What do you think what type of gun was the first recorded shooting match? Was it a pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun, something else like muzzleloader or something? Yeah,
I would say smoothbore muzzleloader. Probably a what do you call it? A flintlock of some kind.
Okay, and then let's see.
At least in the United States.
Here's the thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm just going off of my research, so I could be wrong easily because I'm not looking at Europe. I don't care. But we invented most of the stuff, and we're awesome. So I'm guessing I would at least have seen it if it happened somewhere else first, but maybe not. Like I could easily be not aware of what I'm not aware of. But according to my research, the first one was 1830, so quite a bit earlier than you thought, at least 50 years earlier than you thought. But it was, shotgun. They used live pigeons back then. It was in Ohio. So the first recorded trap shooting match was in Ohio in 1831. And I don't have anything except for the first pistol match being in 1860. So when was Civil War? 1840, 50?
Oh, you got me. I wasn't there, so you know.
I have to think about it. So it's 1861 to 65. So right at the beginning of the Civil War, I guess would have been at least according to my research, the first recorded pistol match. So shotguns were before that. And then you get 1871, after the Civil War, is when the IRA gets founded. And then as far as I can tell, this might not be the first one, because I think, let's find out when Creedmoor was built. But the first rifle match that I've seen, anything that they say these are the oldest rifle matches or whatever, it says that Creedmoor was opened in 1873. 1876, this Palma Trophy match. Have you ever heard of the Palma Trophy match?
No.
And that is, I guess I'd have to click on it up here. This is from the 1870s, 1876. And Palma is, I have no idea. I've looked all over. I don't know why they call it Palma. And it's all capital, but it doesn't mean anything about it. Was the United States, Austria, Canada, Scotland, and Ireland. They used muzzle-loading rifles. There was 27 competitions. They have one competition every so often, and one of the countries would win. And since 1876, they've had 30 of them. So it's not like it happens all that often. But that was the beginning. They all got together at Creedmoor and I guess came up with an award. And then now there's another organization that sort of took over the thing. But basically it consisted of, and I thought I had it written in here better. Oh, here we go. It's a team match in 3 stages, slow fire prone. The first stage, I won't get into all that. Oh, thank you very much. I won't get into all the details, but basically 7.62, 308 is it until very recently. I guess they changed it, but it was 308, and then it was peep sight, and no, somewhere in here it'll say no bipod. Just all you can have is a coat and a sling to you can mess with your coat and you can mess with your sling, but otherwise it was basically open sight, long distance rifle shooting. And,
Yeah, it sounds like a Dewar match.
What is that? I never heard of that one yet.
The Dewar match is very similar, except it's mostly prone. And
Okay,
it's
so
at different distances, but it's high caliber.
Yeah, and it probably, that's how they originally came out, right? Like, well, we're going to shoot together, but I'm not going to shoot shotgun against your pistol. So it's like, okay, well, we'll shoot these, and then, we're going to make sure that we're not, the gun isn't changing the outcome, that it'll be us. So, well, I'll shoot within this parameter. So that stuff all kind of happened, but anyway, it's kind of interesting. So I've been following that. I don't know what did I ask you? If the first one was 1831, and then I asked you what the kind was. Yeah, so I think that's how it went. And they say pistol match, but obviously in 1860, those were revolvers more than likely.
Yeah, so it ended up being a shotgun. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and they were the first real competitions. And then basically, and I think, if I'm trying to piece information, sometimes it'll be like an organization has their history. Sometimes Wikipedia, somebody went in there and put like a really good Wikipedia thing for one of these, and then I'll discover things about the others. So it's kind of neat when I have it in this format compared to other ways that I've tried to research. Because let's say I'm researching the ISSF, which is sort of the International Olympic rules, like that they track all the rules for the shooting part of the Olympics. But let's say that in they've been around forever. So let's say that in 1950, they did something and it spurred off this organization. I might have never known that, but now that I've got this all in one place, I can real quickly go over here and edit this one to include this little piece of knowledge I learned about it. So these things are all kind of growing a little bit. But as I'm learning this stuff, it's like so first there was the end of the Civil War, and we basically, the northern people got creamed by the southern people, is I guess the gist of it, right? And you're still in here, right? Did I kick you out? Did I kick you out? I'm sorry.
No, it was me. I was trying to figure out a way to make the screen bigger, and I ended up clicking on the duck with the headsets.
Oh, okay.
And that took me to it bounced me out. So
yeah, I didn't even realize. So I guess I was just explaining that as I'm putting this.
Oh, I heard you. No problem. I was in the background.
I'm kind of seeing that there's patterns. So like the first, there's the end of the Civil War, and they start shooting rifles, but then this Interstate Trap Shooting Association comes up around in 1892, so a little while after the Civil War, and it's made up of gunpowder companies and people that make shotguns, and they get together and say, hey, why don't we make a sport or like a competition where people shoot our powder and our shotguns, and they compete. And then they go, yeah, let's do that. And everybody starts competing, and then you end up with, if I can get back to wherever I'm looking at, you start to see like some pattern there where, so they do it, and then people are like, well, I'm going to shoot revolvers like that, and then it turns into the Olympics, and then kind of fragments. So that's what I'm really enjoying, when I can look at stuff with this kind of timeline. But this timeline is just written on the internet, right? This thing here is a giant database. So right now you're seeing a filtered database of just the shooting sports, right? But if for some reason I decided to go over to my list over here, I should probably not go there. How about if I cancel that and I decide to go to my list over here and adjust the way that thing's going to display. And I tell it, instead of just displaying shooting sports, why don't you just display everything? And then say update. Hopefully this doesn't kill my server. But if it doesn't kill the server, then what that'll do is put every single thing I've ever put in this database in order. So I'm going to see where like the guys who created the OSS and the CIA fall into Eleanor Roosevelt and the Illinois State Rifle Association, and where that falls into, Don Cates, who's still, he died, but where Marion Hammer, picks up with the guy that invented SAS. And then this isn't displaying everything because I don't have the laws showing up in here. But, once I start, I guess I do have some of the laws in here. But when you start to see these things echo, like, so this law happens and then these organizations get sprouted out, this happens and this is the result. Like, the 1911 is invented. It takes a minute for the military to figure out you got to shoot a 1911 differently than a Colt Peacemaker. So they train a bunch of people. The first people that are instructors come out of the military and start to train civilians. And coincidentally, at the same time, personal defense is a thing. So now you know what I'm saying? Like it's going to be interesting, I think, once I can put all these different things together and then I don't know, somehow track it in a way to see some of the causation and stuff. Like Paxton Quigley, do you remember her?
No.
She wrote a book about she was one of the people that helped write the 1968 Gun Control Act, and then years later in the 80s, her friend almost got raped, and that caused her to realize that she's been wrong, and she wrote a book pro-gun, and then she was a pro-gun advocate for a long time. She got laughed out of the gun thing. She basically, this individual, and I'm just learning this because my only experience was back in the 90s understanding that she wrote a book. But from what I understand now, she was, I don't know how to say she's pivotal, but she was involved in writing the 68 Gun Control Act. Something happened to a friend of hers. She's 180 degreed, started to understand the concept of guns, trained with the Mossad Ayyub and at Gun Sight and all these prestigious places, has trained something like 6,000 or 7,000 females, wrote a book and went on the lecture circuit at a time when the states were deciding whether or not to get on the CCW bandwagon in the 90s. So it's going to be really interesting. And then to start talking with people like yourselves and Knox and others who, were around in all this, and really hoping that we can add a lot of nuance and a lot of connection. What's the word when you connect things together? Like, the connect dots or something, like to make some things more relevant or obvious. But I think I'm starting to see some, I don't know what to call it, patterns. It's 2020 hindsight, but you start to see cause and effect in here in so many different ways. And I'm hoping that once we can see, and it's really deceptive to see this in a column of 4, because in real life, it would look more like the tree that I keep trying to use as a way to express all this. Oops, that's wrong. If I went to the
right, or it would look like a Gantt chart timeline kind of thing with overlapping timelines for all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't even know what the name is, but I think I know exactly. I think you're exactly right. It would look like something that, like one of those when you see a show and they've got the homicide detective trying to figure it all out, and he's got the strings and everything. This thing, this gets really complicated, but I'm really looking forward to however I can come up with that once I start to include the instructors and in this case, the sporting angles of it. Yeah. So I'm still, like I say, this many tabs in to get clearing up the rest of the gun owners' rights groups. Then we'll probably have a couple of sessions where I challenge people to see what I'm missing. Once I'm satisfied, that I've got a bunch of them in there, then I'll get patch raped again. And then we'll let people earn some patches by sprucing it all up. And then we'll see if there's something I can do with all that once it exists. But basically, I'm pulling it over from the big, complicated, expensive, every second matters thing that's really a membership system hiding underneath the Second Amendment, like knowledge base. I'm just moving the Second Amendment knowledge base over here and leaving the expensive membership system and the features and shit that I don't need over here. Let that go to the curb, and all the expenses that incurs go to the curb. I'll have it over here. The frustrating part is then what do I do with every second matters? I might just make the URL resolve to Minuteman because I really don't think that many people go to every second matters anyway. So instead of trying to duplicate this whole thing, or as an effort in doing stuff just because it's fun to do stuff that's super difficult, maybe I'll put all this over here and I do have it as a separate account just to screw with the internet and to have it separate. Separate these servers. Oh, they already are separate servers. So just to have them in different parts of the world so that the stuff exists. But then hopefully once I put all this down and somebody can dig through it, or I'm able to dig through it or whatever, but once people can look at this a whole different way, hopefully we'll see the interconnections and the strength that we've had over the years and the things that pretty much have all happened accidentally or happenstance or coincidentally. Like there's almost nothing's been done with any kind of plan, where we're fighting people who probably do have a plan. If they don't have a plan, it's all coming from the same pocketbook. So there's a plan. There's a structure based on the fact that it all comes from one place, which is a weakness for them. But I think that we can gain once we see the chaos that we're standing on. We'll see the infrastructure. Our brains will see the patterns, and we'll figure out ways to be stronger going forward. So hopefully this is all in with good use or for good effect. What am I out of stock on? Trying to go back into comments here. I guess I could shove them over here. So you guys are talking about calibers, and then Chris is saying that. Cycle Camp jumped in. Went and put an order for the black and white playing card patch and a white on black so I can have a set. Oh, okay. Do I still have both? I didn't even know I had both in there. It's got to be down to the last few. I did notice I ran out of something. That's why I was worried about inventory. I had noticed that the store said I was out of something, like cards, and I'm not out of them. So I tried to go through last week and update everything, and I've had like no sales since then, so it should be up to date. That's what I was thinking. If there's something out, it says it's out. Let's see. KVAR has the decks, but I can't get KVAR to do anything. I think they still sell them, but I sell them also now. But I'm not out of stock. I was not selling them for years, but KVAR never said anything. I just start selling them again. And synergy would have been a good word. Networking probably would have worked. But more than networking, because these aren't, I was thinking of looking backwards. It's not necessarily people that did work together. It's just that they might have been pulling on the same rope, maybe even inadvertent. I didn't even know it. Anyway, so then let's see. My goal is to have one of everything in the store. So you mentioned something about donated to the gun channels and much for giveaways. I did send Gary. Did you buy the buttons? I think you bought buttons and send them to Gary. I need to put something in the store. So my head's been in this, but I'll come up for air at some point and I'm going to add that to the store so that people can buy stuff and then just have it sent to one of the channels that are out there creating content, doing live shows or something, so that they can have it as a giveaway. That would definitely be awesome. So I'll add that to the store as like a no cost, item to add to the inventory. All right. So with that, we've been going for an hour and a half. It sounds like Psycho Camp sleeping. But I appreciate you jumping in and being part of it. Like I say, I'm discovering lately. I've been doing a whole bunch with the shooting sports. I'm not done. So as soon as I get done stripping Every Second Matters and shoving it in over here, I'll probably take a day or two to look at it. Whenever you've got something like this, and then you add a bunch more data. Well, for one thing, the cartoons are out of sync again. So like it's supposed to be all cartoons here, but Jerry Patterson's not a cartoon. That Paxton Quigley, I just tuck her in here. Peggy Totaro, Janalee Tobias, Janalee, I don't know how to say her name. Yeah, I just discovered her today, but she's one of the first first woman-focused, female-focused Second Amendment advocacy organizations. 1993. Paxton wrote her book in right around the same time frame. The thing is, this is also deceptive because when I'm showing you here that I don't have cartoons for everybody. So one of these days I'll go live and I'll cartoon up a bunch more of these things so that there's some consistency in here again. But then this is super wrong because when you look at this is done by birthday. So Harriet Tubman's in here first because she was born first. And these are the guys that created the NRA and Mary Fields, Stagecoach Mary, Annie Oakley, one of my favorites of all time, gun Second Amendment advocates, right? These people are just when they were born, but what they did, like the effects of them, this does not represent it. Some of these people are in here, but the true impact they have on Second Amendment is interesting. So I don't know how to do it. And I don't know if there's software for it. What do they call those things where it's like a 3-dimensional matrix where like things get bigger or, deeper in color, or they'll have like more strings going to them. But I've seen some I don't know what to even call them, but some multi-variable matrices that can somehow incorporate multiple streams of characteristics or data and kind of visually show you not just the way things are interconnected, but the weight or the significance or, how much respect they have or whatever that would be, how much influence they had in real life, not just in numbers, but in like actual results. That might be neat. And hopefully, again, by accumulating all this, putting all this effort into accumulating this stuff, we'll have it in a consistent set of data. A WordPress page is a database entry. So we'll have it, all this data in a fairly consistent way that the next level of AI, at least we save some AI a couple of moments of time, but a human, maybe we inspire some humans to take this data and compile it in ways that we can't conceptualize yet. Same way that those whiteboard, you've ever seen those like whiteboard instructional videos show you how to change your car tire or something with like some sort of images and infographics that are all efficient. Some kid will figure out to take this data, shove it out there so that the next kids figure out that there wasn't no recipe. Everybody just didn't get up and have an easy way to protect freedom. It was all a bunch of happenstance and coincidence and accidents, but with just a little bit of intent, you can change all that and it can be a crystalline structure of freedom. All right, with that, I'll quit rambling. Say thanks to everybody for showing up. Hypercube. I like the weird sound of that, but I don't know if that's the thing or not. Did you want to say anything before we head out of your cycle? I can't tell if you're sleeping or if I'm keeping
No,
up.
you're good. You have Johnny Appleseed and CMP in there, right?
I do. As far as like, I'm considering those both of those are actually examples of both shooting sports and Second Amendment advocacy groups because they kind of do both. And that's why this stuff is so fun because, Appleseed was relatively recent from just 2006. CMP is from back in the days of the 1903 or whatever, I thought. Well, at least it came around from the 1903. I guess it eventually happened more recently.
Well, CMP it should have been between the First World War and the Second World War.
Well, it's kind of the evolution of it. I think the actual CMP with the round logo and everything, it might be more recent, but the CMP comes from like 1903, but you're right. And it all comes from the evolution of like originally you all got to learn marksmanship better. And then it was like, oh, this is fun. Let's have competitions and let's do them monthly or yearly. And who are we going to include? Should we include the military and civilians? Okay, cool. And then it turns into a competition. And then they're like, hey, this competition, let's give it to the NRA for a few decades. And then the NRA is like, hey, that's cool, but that takes way too much work from us. So now it's its own organization. I think that's how CMP happened, is it sort of evolved from success of a program that started. And it's like, where do you draw the line? Where do you say now it's called CMP? Is it like when it actually was incorporated as CMP? Because that's
yeah,
like,
it was no CMP was actually mandated by the federal government.
exactly. I mean, I'm mixing like a whole bunch of stuff right there, but that's where the stuff gets fun. And then that's discussions. We can talk about it, go back and look at how this stuff evolved or whatever. I'm thinking of also like the Olympics, like the rules to the Olympics. I thought the Olympics had gone on since the olden days, but the Olympics only started in like the 18 something or 1920 or something. Like they barely happened. So every modern Olympics at least has had guns in it. So who runs the guns in the Olympics has changed hands like 5 times as far as I can tell. And I'm not paying that close attention, but it like obviously changed hands because like organizations either had that responsibility or like an organization got created to take on that responsibility. And then they would like dwindle sometimes. And then, they'd be so small that somebody else would take them on just so that they'd exist. Crazy. So again, there's going to be all kinds of conversations that can be had. And then hopefully different ways to, what's the word, like interpret or display or put out the information. But anyway, I appreciate everybody for jumping in and being part of it. And I'll quit saying that and making sure I'm not hitting any comments. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a rush because cycle camp's falling asleep and usually everybody jumps off at some point and I got a lot of work to do. So I kind of want to dig back in. I'm about halfway through my last cup of coffee for the day and at some point it wears out and then I don't like to stay up for just no reason during this craziness. Even though like I was telling you guys yesterday or everybody yesterday, I normally like, somebody will ask for something or I'll have like a task or an errand or something, now obviously now that's not happening, but I want to leave myself available and like awake during business hours in case something happens. Like, obviously there could be something emergency that happens and people need help. So I don't want to be like, I fell asleep at 10 a.m. or whatever. And I'll get up when I feel like it. So I'm trying to stay on a semi-reasonable schedule here.
Yep.
Without, so, with that,